Hello, hi, and how are you guys? I'm Wild Chevy. You guys are watching the Atomic Salt Live Show. I'm joined by Casey Roberts. How's it going, Casey?
Good evening, Alan. I'm doing pretty good.
See, you're very jovial this holiday weekend.
Man, I've gotten like 8 hours of sleep 2 nights in a row. I don't even know what to do with myself. I'm pretty sure I could go out and do an Iron Man right now.
Or you could paint your miniatures.
Or I could do that. That's actually what I'm going to do after this.
All right, very good. Let's roll into it. Um, as always, we'll start off with what we did this week. What, Casey, have you done this week in gaming and hobbying?
So, this week, we've done a couple different things. First of all, there was a lot more painting going on of the space puppies. I'm still kind of in the base coating phase. I know it seems like I've been stuck here, but we've got a full tactical squad and a five-man Terminator squad. Well, we've got 10 Terminators now, plus a couple of extra guys. Plus a Wolf Lord and a Wind Priest. So I get one color a night is about how it averages out. But I figure I get on a little bit more. I'll do a second round of bone because I kind of need a second layer to really go evenly. It's just such a thin layer paint. And then I'll do a little bit of reds. Um, and I had somebody do some airbrushing for me on shoulder pads. Look amazing. So,
Well, that's the thing about airbrushing. Airbrushing makes everything look amazing if you do it right.
yeah, it's all the more. I need my own airbrush. I really do. But every time I look, it's going to be like $200 or $300 to start into it right. That's really hard to justify. When I can get a nice set of brushes for $50.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you level up as in RPGing and video games. You got to level up. You stay at a at a plateau. You will never get higher unless you challenge yourself.
This is very true. Very, very true. So we've been doing a lot of painting, and then we did get a game in Wednesday night. So me and my Feast of Blades partner, he should remain safely anonymous. We had a royal smackdown with Bugs and your new Grey Knights. This is one of the few times you and I actually get to square off in 40K. I think this is third time we played 40K together.
Yeah, I believe so. It's very rare occasion.
Oh no, maybe this is fourth. I want to say it was fourth. I don't know. It's less than 10. So we typically play a lot more Infinity or board games. But anyways, we were doing some Feast of Blades practice stuff. We'll get into that a little bit more later, obviously. But it was a bloody, unholy mess, which was dragging out till about 11:30 in the morning at night. So
Yeah, it made it a little rough waking up in the morning to go to school.
yeah, work was an interesting day for me. So, what did you do this weekend, hobby?
Like you said, we did play some 40K. I did bring out my Grey Knights. With the change, I did find myself lacking with just regular strike squad guys with swords. So I had to break down and buy a new pack and actually assemble those real quick. We did have a nice little fun game. That's pretty much it on the playing side. I did get a little painting. I realized that it's been over a month since I touched brush to minis, so I had to sit down last night, did a little bit of work. The Geek Garage guys at you can find those guys on Facebook. They're running a 15-day challenge right now. It's 1 hour a day. Just challenge yourself to paint and post your progress. So I did get a little bit done. I worked on this guy again. Did a little bit of glazing on his skin to bring it up to more of a turquoise color.
Looks nice.
And
Yeah, any
then,
other?
and then I'm working on finishing up the Twilight Knight.
Ooh, lovely. You know, and that's something that came up in your interview a few weeks ago with Meg Maples. It was really, and I know I've heard Angel Heraldez and a lot of other people that, you know, we all kind of look up to. They say it's not what you're doing while you're painting, it's the fact that you're actually painting. And just being really consistent about getting, you know, time with brushing day in and day out. So good on you. And good on Geek Garage for that. I think that's a good challenge.
It is a great challenge, and if you guys are interested, just go to Facebook and look up the Geek Garage, and the event is on their page.
So let's go back to this game that we were talking about. This is a practice for Feast of Blades. And some of you guys might be saying, why do you need to do regular Feast of Blades practice? Just go out and play 7th edition. It's because Feast of Blades runs their games just a little bit different. So we thought we'd take a little bit of time tonight to talk about that. The Feast of Blades has put out their qualifier pack. What this pack is if you plan on playing in their grand tournament, or in their invitational, you're going to have to go through some qualifiers. Or excuse me, not the grand tournament, but if you want to go into the invitational, you have to first qualify in a regional match. And for this regional match, they've put out packets so you know what the missions look like and what the special rules are. And since most of you are probably going to be going out and doing this month in September, we thought it would behoove all of you to take a few minutes and actually step through these missions and show you how they're different and some of the things you should be considering.
And actually, Casey and I will be doing hosting a qualifier here on September the 13th at our local Friendly Game Store.
So if you're in the Salt Lake or north of there, definitely look at End Zone. It's on the 13th, I believe, or the 14th, second week of September. And come on down. It's going to be a good time.
Or check your local listings through the Feast of Blades website.
So let's jump right into it. Shiv is going to bring up a picture for you guys to look at while we talk.
All right. First here we have the overview. It's 1,500 points. They've really scaled it down. You can only have one combined arms detachment with one extra one or a formation. They do not allow Forge World. They do not allow escalation, and they've limited fortifications to, I believe, 3. The Aegis Line, Sky Shield, and the Fortress of Redemption. And here we have this is just the first overview of the packet. Just kind of tells you how you're going to score points, what's going to go down. And then next we have
so let's talk about these first two things for a second here, because these are kind of important, and these are where I think people are going to get confused. So there are certain times when you're going to need to capture either a location or an objective. And if you need to calculate points for scoring it, this is how you're going to do it. You're going to take the cost of that unit, and you're going to reduce it to whatever it currently is at. So the example we give here is you have a 10-man tactical squad that costs 200 points and is reduced to half size, so down to 5 guys. You're going to cut that original 200 points in half as well. Likewise, so if your 100-point unit is reduced by 30%, you reduce the number of points as well by 30%. Another example is Termagants are 4 points a model, So a 14 gaunt squad is 56 points. So if you cut that squad in half, you shoot it down to 7 gaunts. That means that now that gaunt squad is worth 28 points. So it requires a little bit more math on your part. So it also means that you really need to understand what your units are worth.
And normally, all scoring is at the end of the game, correct?
Correct. You won't find any instances, at least in these missions that we're going to go over, where you do mid-game scoring. So battle point modifiers. So let's step back a second before we get into this. The way a Feast of Ways game works is you have a primary objective and you have secondary objectives. Primary objectives fall into a massacre, a major victory, a minor victory, a draw, or a loss. And depending on how well or how poorly you do, you're awarded a certain number of points. Obviously, if you get a massacre, it's worth more than a loss. And a major victory is worth more than a minor victory. So the better you do, the more points you're going to score. Now, also, every mission has secondary victory conditions. You have major, minor, draw, and loss. One important thing to know is that you cannot win, or let me say this, you will never win a game by winning the secondary victory conditions. A major victory on your secondary conditions is always going to be worth less than a minor victory for your primary. So the only way you're ever going to win with a secondary is if you draw on your primary. So really, you shouldn't be looking at a game at the secondary conditions until later on. You should always be focused on trying to achieve the primary conditions. But now, each one of these, as I said before, is given a points total. So let's say I scored 5 points for my primaries. I scored another 5 points for my secondaries. That will give you 10 points for that mission. Then you're going to fall back on your battle point modifiers. As you can see, that those are worth points as well. So in this example, if I had scored 10 points through primary and secondaries, and then let's say I also had First Blood, which is worth 2 points, and Slay the Warlord, which is worth another 2 points, I just scored 14 points for this mission. So obviously, if you win games, you're going to score more points than if you lose games. But it is possible to mitigate your losses by scoring as many points as possible. So in theory, Wild Chevy and I are playing the game, and Wild Chevy pulls out 15 points for a win. I work really hard and I score 10 points, yet I still lose. Now, if somebody else plays the same match, but they score much lower, let's say they win with only 7 points, I have still technically beat them because I had 10. So don't look at your wins and losses as a strict way of ranking yourself. You should be looking at points for all of these missions. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me.
Great. So let's get into the first mission.
All right. First mission is called Eternal War. This is a Vanguard strike deployment, so you're going to be doing on the table corners. Night fight is turn 1 only, and it's random game length. And let's see, victory primary conditions is kill points. Pretty much simple there. You just kill your enemy. You win the massacre if you win 5 or more than your opponent. Major victory is 4 or more, and the minor is if you just get a little bit more than your opponent. Draws, you guys tie up. And then secondaries are objectives. There are 5 objectives on the board, and if you control them, you get points.
Two things I think are worth mentioning on this is, first of all, this is the old school kill points model. So how we were talking about if you have a unit reduced by half or worth half, this is in the mission where that comes into play. This is the strictly one unit is worth 1 kill point. An independent character is worth 1 point. A dedicated transport is worth 1 point. So, and then the second thing to remember is, while it does have a diagram for these objectives are randomly placed.
All right, so Casey, with your list, how would you go about this one? What are you looking to go at? Are you going to go first? Try to go for first player or be second player?
So my list is very much an alpha strike list. Without getting into too much detail, I'm using a lot of drop pods. So if possible, when you're using an alpha strike list, you need to understand if it makes more sense for you to take first turn or second turn. For my list, I'm going to want to go second turn because that is going to mitigate the amount of shooting and the amount of damage that my opponent can deliver to me. And that's usually, and again, so that's drop pod space moves. Well, Chevy, what would you do for like a Grey Knights or another Marines? Would you take first or second?
So my list is Grey Knight formation. It's one of the brand new formations in the book. It allows me to deep strike everything first turn if they have a deep strike special rule on a 3+, and those guys get to move and shoot in any order. Like I said, it's kind of alpha strike, but it's very risky. I do have units that have the 30-inch shunt. So with this deployment, with the triangle edge, I could presumably, on however the terrain is set up, I could place units first turn and do a zone denial if these guys have infiltrators. And then shunt first turn and then just wreck house.
And then another thing we ought to consider is how you place your objectives. I mean, yeah, we could spend a week just discussing objective placement. But don't just place them at random. Really consider how your army functions. If you're running an orc army, which means that you're going to be moving up in the middle of the field and trying to get those assaults and really get to the other guy's deployment zone, you're not going to want to put any objectives in your own battlefield. Likewise, if you have an army like Cow, where you're setting up gun lines and you have very static type of placements, you're going to want to try and keep as many objectives close to you, if that makes sense. So,
now, question: do objectives go down before deployment or after?
They go down before deployment. So that's part of your setup.
So here's a sneaky trick that I learned back a few years ago. When placing your objectives, place them in your opponent's side. This sounds kind of weird, but it's very good at zone denial. If you have a building, it's a perfect building set up to put all your shooty army or heavy army, you know that your opponent is going to put the objective right inside there. So if you get the first objective, you stick it right outside, out in the open, because then they can't put another objective within 12 inches, and really much screws over how they're going to play the game.
That is definitely a nasty little trick, and you're not going to make any friends doing that. But then again, you're not looking to make friends here.
It's easier to take something out in the open than try to fight out of a building.
That is a very fair point. So, we'll move on to our second mission.
Alright, mission 2 is Strike Zone.
Great. So, this is using hammer and anvil deployment. So, you're going to be fighting along the right side of the board. You have the really deep deployment zones. Once again, you're going to have objectives set up in there. However, this time it's not random. They specifically tell you how they want them. You're going to have one center, the other two are, or the other four are going to be 18 inches in from the corners. We do have reserved night fighting random game length. Night fighting is turn 1 only. For this one, it's all about controlling objectives. So these objectives are not worth the equal amount of points. So if you can see here in this graphic, the one in the center is actually worth less than the two in the deployment zones. So how do you win this game? Primary objectives, as I said, our objectives. A massacre is score 5 more points than your opponent. A major victory is score 4 more points than your opponent. A minor is score just more. And a draw is the same amount. Your secondary objectives then are going to be kill points. Major victory is have 3 or more kill points than your opponent. Minor victory is having just more than your opponent. Okay, so let's talk about this for a few minutes. We kind of talked about objectives a little bit here beforehand. Oh, excuse me. But if you're going to want to be scoring 5 more points than your opponent, you've got to do one of two things. One, you've got to hold the objectives in your own backfield, and then take the center and drive them off of both of their objectives in their own deployment zones. Or two, you're going to need to be able to hold the ones in your deployment zone, skip the center, and go after the stuff that's in their deployment zone. It's typically when you think of objective games, you think of very standoffish. And again, this is a mission where being aggressive and getting in your opponent's space is really going to help. So, Alan, some analysis on your part?
Yes. So we have 5 static objectives. This makes it very difficult for our alpha strikes. Your opponent's going to be playing the defensive game the first turn because you're going to be in their deployment zone. The problem is that you will have to, if you want to get the objectives in your area, you will have to split your force, and that's sometimes never a good thing. This is more getting those last 2 is going to be very last game type of situation. I would definitely go try to get second turn on this one so you can last minute, for me, take the last minute shunt over, grab them at the very end, and deny your opponent. How would you go at it, Case?
I think you said it best. I think turn 2 is really what you want in this game, because it's the end of whatever turn you make it to. It's going to be deciding when the points are tallied up. So you want those very fast objective takers. That could mean a flying monstrous creature could do this really well. A dedicated transport that's fast. So the Storm Wolf or the Space Wolves have the ability to take a flyer that can hover as a dedicated transport. That would do really well here in this instance. Basically any kind of fast-moving unit that has objective secured. So if you've been able to kill off the enemy's troops and they're holding something like an elite or a fast attack, and somehow you're able to get your troops up through no man's land and get them within their objectives and take those away from them. But yeah, you definitely watch out for things like Eldar jet bikes. Those will be very, very strong in this type of mission, simply because they're just incredibly fast, and they can hide and hide until your last turn, and then pop out and make a nuisance of themselves.
I'd say anything with a hit and run as well, because I mean, if you are survivable enough to be in your opponent's fighting phase, then you do hit and run, and you pull out, then you have all free movement in your phase. Very effective trick as well.
Yep.
Also, a key point that Casey pointed: flyers and flying monstrous creatures can't be in the air to score for these packs. They have to be hovering or landing. very key thing to point out.
Yep. And what you said about assault is a great thing to think about too. If you can drop in, say, like a squad of Terminators, or reliably deep strike something close, endure that first turn of weathering, and then just jump into a combat. Something where you know you'll be okay for 2 or 3 turns, but then you can either exit at will, or you know that you're going to eventually wipe them out. It's a great way to hide your units in their backfield. On top of that, if you can get into their deployment zone, that also gives you line break. So, splitting your force, as you said, never feels like a great idea. But if you can figure out a strong way to do that, strong backfield holders, and then a separate aggressive force, you're really going to be able to do well here. So this is actually a time when you might consider some type of ally force, where you have your allies sitting in the back with a really weak or cheap troop, while the bulk of everything else goes out and does your killing for you in their deployment zone. You want to be defensive, and that's your first instinct is to be defensive, but I think that the people who are going to score big points here are the ones who are going to be aggressive and trying to the other guys' deployments. Right. So, all right, that takes us to mission 3.
Mission 3. Here we go. This is the one we played in our little practice round. This is Stronghold. It's a Dawn of War situation. Reserve, night fighting, random game length, night fight, turn 1 only. This is a little bit different. You have 4 objectives in the center. These objectives actually mark out zones. You have 5 zones, and this is going to be whoever controls the area at the end or has the most points at the end of the game gets the points for scoring. Massacre is you get at least 3 more than your opponent. Major is if you get 2. Minor is if you get at least 1 more than your opponent. And draw is if you guys tie up. Secondaries, these objectives are your secondaries. You can hold them at the very end. It's not going to win you the game per se, unless you are in a tie situation.
And I think this is the type of mission that most games are going to be the least familiar with. Because typically we're playing some kind of kill points or an objective mission. I don't think a lot of people actually do area control.
And in our game, it was very interesting how we played this. We did this 2v2 because Casey here is going into the doubles tournament. But first round, my opponent, or my ally, the Tyranids, they were deployed out, and first turn, there was nothing from the Space Wolf Blade Angels at all. They all came in, flying in with their special reserve, and it was pretty much a bloodbath after that.
Yeah. So a couple things to keep in mind here. First of all, as we talked about earlier, this is the game where you need to really understand how many points your unit is worth. So just because you have 10 gaunts doesn't mean that you control that objective, control that area, because they're only worth 30 points. Likewise, you might only have a single HQ, but if you have a 250-point HQ unit running around in that area, you have a very good chance of taking that. That counts for your opponent as well. It really pays to understand what the other guy has and what he doesn't have. General tactics, in the game we played, we just brazenly said, let's kill them all. And if they don't have anything left, they can't hold them in. This is wrong. Because even if you have a single model with 4 points in one area, and nobody else is in that area, he still controls that area. So just going out and trying to be aggressive and killing your opponent, I don't believe is the way to take this mission. Personally, I like the idea of moving up into the center. Going up into Area 3, that's that area that's defined by the 4 objectives, that box. I'm moving towards the center of the table. And really taking your whole bulk of your force. You don't leave anybody behind. You go strong into the middle, and you just try and hold it. Yes, it's going to be hard because that's where all the shooting happens, and you're going to be in range of a lot of nasty stuff. However, it's going to make you very mobile. And when we don't know how many turns it's going to be, but let's be honest, you're going to be lucky to make it to your 5th turn based on time limits. So by turn 3 or turn 4, you're going to be in great positions. You're not going to find yourself out in the middle of nowhere, like a corner of a board edge, trying to come in and take areas. If you can hold on to the middle, you're going to give yourself options on which area you want to move into. If your opponent is all located in Area 1, then congratulations. You've been able to be aggressive enough to pin them in, and then you can just scatter your forces and hope you can lose. Likewise, if your opponent has been smart and is trying to play the areas, or if you want to call quadrants, but there's 5 of them. What do you call it when there's 5 areas versus 4 areas?
5 versus 4.
Yeah,
it's penta.
Pentants. Anyways,
Quadrants.
Yeah, quadrants with a central area. That's how I would play it. Regardless of your army, I would take the center of the board and just try and weather their shooting, and then give yourselves options at the end. And especially if you do that, you have a good opportunity of holding on to a lot of these objectives as well.
This is very much another one of those. This is going to be a last round victory. If you're going second, you will have the advantage here because you can make that last minute move, make last minute push. You can run your guys, don't even shoot or don't attack, just rush them into an area, get the points.
Yeah, this is, you have to be careful. This is a game where you can waste a lot of time overthinking things. You can, at the beginning or the end of their turn, you can spend a lot of time trying to anticipate and trying to count how many points are where. But to a certain extent, that doesn't really matter until the last round. Now, granted, you should always be aware of what your enemy is doing and where his points are moving. But don't try and be everywhere in your first 2 or 3 rounds of the game. So just another reason to take the middle and hold it, and then wait how the game finally shakes out towards the end before you really start trying to control it.
Alright, that's it for the missions. It's very... If you're going to play in the Feast of Blades, definitely go check out this mission pack. Play with your friends, get familiar with it, go into an invitational, and good luck trying. I mean, a lot of people don't like playing competitive games. There's mindset that, oh, I'm just going to get stomped. It's not really the mindset you should have going into a tournament situation because who knows? The dice are very fickle. You can have the best list in the world, but if your dice don't love you, you're never going to win.
Yeah. Likewise, in our game the other night, I should have been out of the game long before I was, but I was making an amazing amount of armor saves. So never count yourself out until you're actually out. And then another thing, just try, even if you're not planning on playing in this tournament, I encourage you guys to pick these missions up. These have been developed by an actual international team, people from Kirby3++.net. If you guys are part of them, they're all very strong tournament players. I highly suggest their website. They do a lot of tournament, a lot of theory crafting on how to play these types of missions. And they're incredibly fun. They're different from what you're normally going to see, but at the same time, they're also very balanced. So they don't favor one army type over another. So give them a try. Let us know what you think of them.
All right, now we're going to go on to news from the week. Let's start out at the top. GW. We have seen some interesting stuff this week from Games Workshop. Let's pull it up. We have here so for your fantasy players, the end times that are coming, and we have a new Supreme Lord of the Undeath, Nagash. This is a character along the lore. This is like, from what people have been saying, this is going to be one of those precursors to 7th edition, or no, the next edition for fantasy. And with this guy, you can actually take Tomb Kings and the vampire counts as the same army. So we have this guy here, very cool and interesting kit. And then just recently on the announcement, they have 4 horsemen, 5 horsemen, 3 horsemen actually. Got this very new. I mean, personally, modeling wise, this is a very cool looking kit. You have you have characters here on these unholy mounts.
It's essentially the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse.
Yeah.
You know, and these are really great. You know, Nagash, the 4 horsemen, and all the other stuff that come out is great. I think it's the first time I've actually ever wanted to play fantasy. And I will actually admit, I'm envious of fantasy with what's going on right now. This End Times feels like what the Sanctus Reach campaign should have been. There's rumor that the fluff will actually be advancing. Things are getting shaken up, and they're leading into the proper edition. There's, 40K stuff has just been kind of like dropped in our laps. And GW says, you guys deal with it. Here you go. If you can figure out the jigsaw puzzle that we're giving you, then you'll enjoy it even more. But they are doing a proper job of really teasing this and building up hype for it. Like I said, even as a 40K guy who has no interest in fantasy, I'm kind of excited to see what they're going to do.
And this week from Forge World, we have this beauty. This is the Certes Knight Castigator, brand new kit, or a new edition of the Certes Knight. This guy here has a very large power sword instead of the shield and spear, and a very big, gun that I just imagine this shooting millions upon millions of shells an hour.
Oh yeah, I mean, you look at it and you think about all like those cool clips we see of like A10s or like AC-130s just laying waste to area. You get a feeling that this will do it. And you gotta love the concept of the Castigator, and then it has that ginormous sword that's Forge World. You don't usually troll us, but when you do, it's worth it.
I mean, the only thing I don't like about this one is the sword. It's a static pose on the arm. There's no. A sword is a very thrusty weapon. This is very hard in the wrist. There's actually no wrist at all. So this is more of a shank you from the bottom.
Yeah, but I think, as with most Forge World stuff, you're going to have a lot of options to model it or to change it, or with a little bit of work on the modeler's part, you'll be able to get a lot better posing out of it. So, and it's a night model. Everybody loves the night
models. So that's it for releases this week. We do have a bit of some rumors from the Warp. This is on 40K side. We do have people talking about Dark Eldar are on the on the horizon. This is going to be a uh, September release, so you might be seeing something here soon.
Yeah, I guess I don't really know a lot of people who play Dark Eldar, so I can't comment on a lot of this stuff because I don't see it on the tabletop all that much. But it'll be interesting because Dark Eldar, nobody really seemed to complain about it that much. They seem to be like an army that still has a lot of options and still has a lot of strength.
Well, it was one of those armies that they never got updated. 10 years without a new codex, people were very, very loyal to their armies. And then they got the huge release a few years ago, and yeah, like you said, there was a lot of people playing them, and now, but then everything else started getting released too. So we will see those hopefully coming out here in the next couple of weeks. Along the rumor mill, we do see possibly Inquisition in October. And next part of the end times, October, November, possibly Blood Angels in November, and then Hobbits come December.
Yeah, the 40K definitely has. I mean, there's always going to be more rumors than there are releases, but if GW can keep up the release schedule and start bringing in fantasy stuff, it's going to be an interesting 4 or 5 months. So, very excited about what they're doing. I mean, I know some people, GW is the easy target to pick on, but boy, they make some beautiful stuff.
That's very true. That's like, I mean, you can harp on them all you want as a company. They do make some of the best kits. Plastic is pretty great to work with, and they keep coming out with new and new stuff that actually looks great. Very much Shiny Syndrome.
Yeah. So Warmachine Hordes, the guys who do nothing for the Shiny Syndrome. I'm kidding, Project Chris. I love you guys. But I just haven't found it yet.
We will get you into the Steam Power sometime soon.
One of these days, anyway.
Let's see. So for Warmachine, this week they did announce Tactics, their video game that they kickstarted last year. It's now on early access. You can pick this up through the Steam store, and it looks like a very cool game. The graphics are great. I've got it downloaded here on my computer. I have yet to play it. Just haven't had the time. But from what people have been telling me, it's a great game. It's not very much going to get you into the tabletop side. Very little mechanics are a little bit different, but it lets you explore in a new way.
That's okay. I know the last time I said something I was knocking Project Press, but I have to actually give them credit for this. This is a great idea, and I know you don't think that there's a lot of spillover between Tactics and maybe the game, but what you should really consider is how many people did GW bring in through the Dawn of War series, which was more of an RTS game. So you got people who became invested in the universe, really got into the fluff, really started getting some preference for certain units, and I think that Project Press is, and unfortunately they've abandoned this. GW is now building a lot of mobile shovelware type stuff. But Project Press, I think, has done their homework on this, and I think they're actually going. This is going to be a good recruitment tool for their board games or for their tabletop games as well. So,
I know,
and even better if it doesn't suck.
Yeah, I know at Gen Con and PAX Prime this weekend, they said that the lines for the demos were nonstop.
Yep. So, video gamers and tabletop gamers don't always cross over, and in this case, you want as little crossover as possible. I mean, you want to target the gamer crowd. You don't want to target the tabletopers. You've already got those people invested. You want to find new people that aren't familiar with your IP or aren't familiar with your universe and really get them hooked. And I think that this is a great tool.
All right, let's see. Up next, we have the other the releases for this month. We have the Cephlax. These are the mercenary faction that just came out or was announced earlier this year. They're actually starting to hit the shelves. First, here we have the new Warcaster. This guy, very creepy looking, floating floating spider with the guy's head just sucked into there. You can just moving along.
Oh my gosh. Okay, Privateer Press. This is what I'm talking about. You get all this great credit for these great ideas, and then this is what you're going to show off as your new model? Come on. I can't even talk about this.
It's all fluff. This is a faction that's very mind control. So the skinny body is withering away, but his mind is so enlarged that it's in this case. It's very. I mean, yes, it's odd, but it's very interesting in the fluff ways.
You know, I just imagine this is one of those models that look great in concept art, but you're just having trouble translating.
All right, and so with the caster, we do have another. This is the heavy monstrosity. This is the Wrecker. I believe this is you can make this into 3 kits. This is the one that got the picture of. Very cool. I mean, it's a monstrosity. And this is what you'd see. I would actually see this a lot in the role-playing game. This is a guy that you don't want to meet in the dungeon, but inevitably will be there.
Yeah, he looks like he would definitely be in a dungeon in Amsterdam or something. But no, technically I think it's a very nice model.
And let's see, we have the Mind Bender in the Drudges. This is a small unit. This is the guy who pretty much takes over the unsuspecting travelers that enter into the sewer, probably, and turns them into his slaves. These guys are pretty much like cannon fodder. But with cannon fodder, if the more that are on you, it's going to hurt a lot more.
Stalin said, quantity has a quality all of its own.
And last but not least, this is for the Horde side. This is the new Light War Beast, the Nephilim Bloodseer. From what I've heard from Legion players, this is one of those units that just increase the power of the Legion. I think it's just a cool looking model in general.
You know, I agree. I think that this is actually really nice. So, Privateer Press. Honestly, I like their Hordes models a lot more than I like their steampunkish type stuff. But I think that this one looks cool. So, it's got kind of like a little bit of overdone and blown up elements, but it's not so far out there that you can't really get behind it.
Alright, so that's it for Hordes and Warmachine. Infinity. Let's talk about Infinity, the game we love so much. We have the August releases. So these are coming out this month. We have Yojimbo, which we talked about last week. Very cool looking miniature. This is a 2-pack. You get the Yojimbo standing and Yojimbo on the bike.
Yeah, it's great because if anybody who's familiar with the Yojimbo model, they teased the idea of him and some of the concept stuff a long time ago. And this was really driven by the fans. They not only wanted Yojimbo on the bike, but they wanted him on foot as well. And so Corvus Belli originally wasn't intending on doing that. But because of the reaction and the desires of the fans, they responded to it, and we now have two options, which is something we don't usually. Actually, I can't think of any biker model that has just a standing version of it. So.
I think, yeah, this is a great. I mean, at first I thought this was going to be a bootleg, but I'm glad to see this as an actual unit.
He looks good enough to be a bootleg miniature.
And then next we have the Kotal mobile unit. This is Toha, so I have no idea what they do.
Who knows? Why would I? No, I played Toha. He's a cool unit. I don't love his stance so much. I think it looks a little odd. Like, I dig the idea of two combi rifles, but the way he's kind of leaning back is a little funky for me. This is going to be your skirmisher unit for the Toha. If anybody's ever played Toha in Infinity, they know that the Toha are very, very fast and can hit very hard. But they need to be able to. They form three-man link teams, and that's really where their power comes from. This guy is a solitary model. He doesn't form link teams, but he's still fast. He moves 6'4", and he has super jump. So super jump means that you can jump as high as your first movement value. So it means he can jump up 6 inches on the buildings, or get around extra large or extra high obstacles. And he can be a specialist as well. So he'll do really well for tournament events where you need to take objectives. Really nice unit. I'm glad to see Toha finally getting fleshed out a little bit more. So they're by no means a weak army, but it's nice to see them start getting a little bit of attention and, at least, if anything, a few more options. Because Toha are fairly mono at this point.
And like I said, it's a very cool looking miniature. I think it's a very cool looking miniature. I mean, what else says badass? And I'm going to be holding 2 rifles. I'm going to take you down.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at that center pose, the center picture, it looks good, but it's just the way he's kind of like leaning back on his left foot. I think just looks a little odd. So, but then again, Corvus Belli doesn't always take the best aim. The best. Their pictures aren't always of the best aim of the picture. So.
And up next, we do have Ice Storm. This was on pre-order the last month or so. Now it's actually starting to hit stores. I'm actually going to be doing an unboxing, and here's this week, and I'll show you guys what's inside. Maybe even actually go through what each mission is. But this is our first look at the 3rd edition, so.
It says a lot about the pace of releases for Corvus Belli and Infinity. When the box finally hits retail, and we all just kind of shrug and say, okay, yeah, it's here. All right, moving on, more shiny stuff. Because this is an amazing box, and the fact that it feels like it's we're already moving on from it is a little odd. So you'd expect the company to maybe rest on their laurels a little bit, but they're still pushing ahead fast and furious.
Very good looking miniatures. I'm always impressed by what comes out with Corvus Belli.
No one can ever doubt the quality.
Okay, so that was Infinity. Let's see. That's it for the major companies that we've seen this week. I did just see an announcement roll up for Adepticon. They are asking for, because they're actually in a new event location this year, they want more games to come to Adepticon. Last year, I guess they had, or last couple of years, they had to micromanage because the space was so small. They have bigger space now, and they want more people to come. I will put the link for the event submission down in the description below. But I mean, Adepticon's coming around. The this is the tail end of con season. But that doesn't mean next season's not going to start rolling around. If you're interested, just to go to Chicago, March 19th to the 22nd of next year.
I definitely think Wild Chevy Productions should be bringing a B&B. Huh? Huh? Huh?
And so last little bit, we do have some stuff on our blog site. Casey has been showing off his miniatures, and we did get a little bit of an article from him about Mantic's Kickstarter, which just ended, a little over $1 million, Dungeon Saga. So give that a look.
Yep, for all of you who didn't get on that one, I think this was a missed opportunity. They had a lot. This is one of those Kickstarters that just blew up, and especially like the last 4 or 5 days, just went crazy. So this was your opportunity to get a lot of stuff.
And it's Mantic. I mean, we've seen. I don't recall how many Kickstarters Mantic has done, but this is a company that knows what they're doing. They've created, 7 Kickstarters. They know what they're doing. This is going to be a big hit when it finally hits the shelves.
Yeah, and this is compatible with their Kings of War system. The quality of their miniatures is just always getting better. At this point, I don't have anything negative to say about it. But they're not content to be just average. These guys are really pushing themselves. So, yeah, I'm sure this is not the last Kickstarter we're going to see from them, and it just makes me excited for their next one.
Anything else coming up for you this week, Casey?
You know, this week is just going to be keeping my nose to the grindstone, or keeping the paintbrush to the mini. So we're going to be getting a lot of. Hopefully, we should start wrapping up some of these. We'll get the last few colors on. We'll get them washed, and we'll just start detailing on a few specific ones. So, cross your fingers.
All right, folks, that is it for the show for this week. Tell us what you like in the comments below. Tell us what you want to see, what you don't want to see, what you enjoyed. It's all down in the comments. It lets us know what we can help do for you.
The only way we get better is by you guys being mean to us.
Yep. I won't break our hearts too much. We have Wine, Women, and Song to help us with that.
You do?
All right, folks. Like if you like this, share it with all your friends. Let us know in the comments below. I am Wild Chevy. This is Rocket Yeti.
Have a good night, folks.
Until next week.